Continuing to talk about selections, I have open here several images. I have a background image of music, and I have an oboe, and I have a Strad violin. All of these images you can download from the zip file on Blackboard. What I want is to get a copy of this this violin, 2 copies of the oboe, put onto this music over here. And we're going to use this to talk about layers as well as different selection tools and different methods you can use for selections. So if I start over with my Strad image, I see that my background is transparent, which is, by the way, what I want for both of my images of the instruments is to only get the instrument, not the background. But in this one, the background's transparent, so it's great. It's easy. All I need to do is select the entire image. I don't need to try to select the violin itself. Incidentally, how do I know it's transparent? Is because Photoshop represents transparency through that checkerboard. So I'm going to just use my regular old keyboard shortcuts, Control A, Control C, just like I did in the last video. Go over to the music one and Control V. Oh, now that's a nasty little surprise. Why did this happen? Well, if I go back up here to my tab, that place that I kind of talk about in every video, you really can go and to learn a lot of information about your image, I see that this is an index picture. That is a kind of image that has been saved with a limited amount of colors. It's not an RGB like my other ones. Remember when we did the practice of making your picture into grayscale and then back into RGB so it could take on color? So I see that this one is also index and this one is RGB. That's probably, if you were trying to figure out how to troubleshoot, that would be the first place that I would look into to see what is the color mode of your image. If something weird like this happens, where you paste a color image into, even if it pastes into something that has color and it doesn't keep all of its color, you're going to want to check the mode. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to change the mode of this to RGB. And now I'm going to paste in again, and now it pastes in with color. I use the keyboard shortcut Control V, by the way, to paste it in. So perfect. That's exactly what I want. And I can close that image out. And now I'm going to go to the oboe image. This one's a little bit trickier because I don't want that white background. I don't want to have a big square. I just want to have the instrument itself. So I'm going to use this to talk about the Magic Wand selection tool. Over here on our toolbar, the second, third, and fourth group of tools are all different kinds of selection tools. And if you hold them all down, you'll see that there are other selection tools embedded within. So the second group are our lasso tools, and I'm going to talk about those in another video. And over here, we have these 2 selection tools that are group selection tools, the Magic Wand and Quick. I call them group selection tools because they both work by grouping and making a selection of pixels or image parts that are similar to the area where you start your selection. So it kind of works for you and it selects parts of your image. I'm going to take the Magic Wand tool. And the point of what I'm going to do here is for you to think about that sometimes what you want to select is actually easier to select what you don't want and then to inverse it. If I look at this picture, there's a lot of white, and the white is very clear and very easy to see. The image itself has all of these little details that might be kind of hard if I had to try to go in and select them. So what happens if I take my Magic Wand tool and I click into it and I just grab the white area? Well, my version of Photoshop seems to be freaking out a little, but if we ignore the fact that it's going to black, I can see that it's just taken the white area and not my oboe. So I'm going to go up to Select and inverse my selection. And now I've selected just my oboe. I'm going to copy it, go over to my music score, and paste it in. Perfect. I'm going to paste it in again. Control V again. Now I've pasted it in twice. It doesn't look like I have, but if I go over to my layers panel, I can see that I have a layer 3 and a layer 2, and there's a little icon in them, and I can see the separate oboes. So why can't I see them? Because they pasted right on top of each other. I can take my move tool and move one out, and voila, there's the other one. So I want to have my oboes, first of all, behind my violin, and then I want to have them kind of in an X shape, crossing over each other. So how do I do that? Well, first I have to make sure that I'm on the layer here in the layers panel that I want to rotate. One of these oboes I want to rotate. So I can decide which one, whichever one. I can use the eyeball to identify the one that I'm working on. And I'm going to choose the top one. So that's the layer I want to make sure I'm selected on. And I'm going to go back over to Edit and Transform. And remember, we were here before, we went to Scale, but this time I'm going to choose Rotate. And that gives me a bounding box. When I put my mouse in the corner, I get a curved double arrow. And if I click and I drag, I can now rotate my image. And then just like when I had it as a scale, I'm using it for scale, if I put my mouse in, it becomes a move tool and I can move it. And now I'm going to go up to the options bar and commit. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. So the only thing that is not what I want is that I want the violin on top of the oboes. So you can probably guess where I'm going. If you look over here in my layers panel, I see that my top layer is my oboe that's slanted to the right, and then the other one is the back oboe, and then the layer on the bottom is my violin. So what happens if I switch that layer order? I'm going to take that layer, click it, and drag it up, and let it go when it's on top of my layer 3, and there we have it. It's now on top of the layer of my oboe. And I still have my move tool selected, so I can just click and kind of drag it up there. Let's just continue with one more practice to keep talking about layer order. I want to create the effect that perhaps this music has a slight tint to it. And I'm going to do that just as we did with the painted images by creating a new layer, fill it with color, and lower the opacity of that layer. So I'm going to go over to my layers panel and click on new layer and pick a color for my foreground color. Any color, doesn't matter. Clicking OK. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Alt Backspace to fill it. I also could have used my paint bucket tool that is located right underneath the gradient tool. But now this is not exactly what I want because this layer is covering up all of my other layers. I could try lowering the opacity of this layer like I did in my painted images, but everything has a green tint and I only want the music to have a green tint. So this is another example of using layer order. I'm going to take this layer 4 and I'm going to drag it so it's between my background and layer 2. The background is the music, layer 2, 3, and 1 are the layers with the instruments. So that's exactly what I want. And I might lower the opacity just a little bit more. Okay, so in this video we talked about layer order, using Edit, Transform, Rotate to be able to rotate an object that it's on its own layer. So this is different from image rotation. Image rotation rotates my entire image. If I had 5 layers, image rotation, I go back up here, would rotate all 5 layers. When I go to Edit, Transform, Rotate, that rotates just the contents of whatever layer I'm on. Okay, so I'm just going to finish this one and we'll continue on working with selections in our next video.